Florida's authoritarian Governor Ron DeSantis signed a bill on Monday that makes it illegal to protest or picket outside of someone's home. In other words, Ron DeSantis looked at the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution and said, that's a fine document you've got there. It would be a shame if somebody took a big old dump on it. And that is exactly what he proceeded to do. This piece of legislation, and I'll get to that more in a moment, is 100% unconstitutional. The right to peaceably assemble cannot be infringed. You know, just like Republicans love to say, like, hey, you can't do anything about the Second Amendment. Gun control is illegal because it shall not be infringed. Well, guess what? Same thing with that First Amendment, which is far more important, by the way, than the Second Amendment. They're allowed to do these things, and of course, this law is not going to hold up in court. I'll get more to that in just a moment because I think that's the point of this. But obviously, this piece of legislation came about because Ron DeSantis looked at these protests outside Supreme Court justices' homes, protests that, by the way, were in fact peaceful. Nobody got injured. There was no property damage. None of that happened. Just people out there pissed off, and they had every right to be pissed off, and they had every right to be where they were. So DeSantis signs this legislation. Florida law bans residential picketing and picketing or protesting before or about a dwelling of a person with specified intent. So you could protest in front of a house as long as you're not protesting the person that lives in the house. You know, if people were on my street protesting because they just wanted to protest, they wouldn't be arrested. But if they were protesting because they didn't like me, then the law would kick in. And you can't do that. That is 100% unconstitutional. So here's what DeSantis said when signing the bill, according to Axios. Sending unruly mobs to private residences, like we have seen with the angry crowds in front of the homes of Supreme Court justices, is inappropriate. This bill will provide protection to those living in residential communities, and I am glad to sign it into law. So because you think something is inappropriate, now you're infringing upon our First Amendment rights. So like I said, this is going to be struck down by the courts until it goes to that Supreme Court. Not only do you have a 6-3 Republican majority sitting on that Supreme Court, but you also have justices sitting on that Supreme Court that, of course, have had protesters outside their homes. So by the time this piece of legislation makes its way up to them, they're going to look at it and say, oh, you know what? I think I like this. I think I'm going to say that it doesn't violate the First Amendment. And in my estimation, that is exactly why Ron DeSantis signed it. Of course, he wanted some quick, easy political points with his rabid base here in the state of Florida. But he also wanted to get this thing in front of the Supreme Court to solidify it forever. That is the point of this legislation. That is the point of all the anti-abortion legislation we've seen. That's why Roe was overturned in the first place. Republicans know what they're doing, and I hate to give them that credit, but you absolutely have to. They don't do these things just to be oppressive. They do it so that it can make it to the Supreme Court, so that it can become the law of the land. What are you doing? It's over. The video's over. I'm done complaining about everything, and that's it. The end. Leave. Well, okay, if you're going to stick around, maybe you should give us a like, a comment, a share, just subscribe to stay connected with all of our content. Or maybe you should consider becoming a member for some exclusive content and perks. Just follow the link in the description. Now, go. Just go.